Welcome to the VA Today pod and videocast with your host, Gail Alexander, a podcast about VAs, for VAs, and businesses looking for the right VA to help to start grow their business. Find the right VA today and visit VA Today on YouTube and ava-ni.com to find out more about VAs and what they can do for you, and get in touch with the virtual assistants you need today.
Hi everyone, welcome today to the VA Today with me, Gail Alexander, and today I am really happy and pleased to be joined with Caroline Wylie, and that everyone will know from the Society of Virtual Assistants, but also her own business, Virtually Sorted. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Gail.
You're very welcome. And I will say at the very start, I will apologise because we're both dying with the cold, and I will try not to cough over this, but I can't promise anything. So anyway, we'll get started. So yeah,
Be at the ready.
Yes, with you on that one. So yeah, one of the first things I wanted to ask you was, where are you actually today? Are you in Glasgow or are you in London?
I am in Glasgow. Do you know, a lot of the time I spend most of my time in Glasgow these days. Basically, I used to work from between Glasgow and London, and it was kind of one of those things that the clients loved to see if they could catch me out. You know, they would turn up in my office with, say, chocolates or flowers or something, and you would go, "I'm not there."
Nice clients, nice clients.
They are nice clients. I do have some very nice clients. But yeah, it was kind of like this joke about how they could catch me out. You know, so but these days I'm pretty much always in Glasgow. I have a home office, but I also have another office which is just 5 minutes down the road from my house, and that means that if I'm having meetings or I need to like organize venues and stuff, they're really great about doing that. And it's a lovely office. I have a roof garden. It's very swish.
I'm very nice.
I know, it's amazing. So it's a really nice office. The landlords are really cool, and they do all my mailing and stuff like that. So that's good.
Oh, excellent. So for anyone that doesn't know you, but I'm sure most people will, how did you start out as a virtual assistant? And I know it's quite a while now, but what was the main driver for you starting out as a virtual assistant?
Well, I guess I heard about virtual assistants probably about 5 years before I actually became one. And at that point, it was this kind of idea rather than something that people did. Yeah. So people were talking about, you know, how people could work remotely, telecommuting, all of those kind of old-fashioned words that we used to use. But in reality, the UK was not ready for it. The UK's infrastructure at that point was very much based upon BT's cable lines, which, as you know, are somewhat dodgy. We just didn't have the same kind of internet structure. And it sounds strange now talking about internet providers not providing globally, but you would find quite a lot of the time that the US companies were really not keen on selling to UK companies. So let's say you wanted to use the same provider for mailing services like email services like Aweber that you know your US compatriots were using. Aweber needed an American credit card to set up an account. So, you know, you can imagine there were some real barriers to working internationally when I first started in 2004. And I'd kind of, when I was living in London, I really wanted to do it. I couldn't afford to do it because I really needed to pay my rent. So when I moved back to Glasgow, all of a sudden I had all of this spare time because I wasn't spending, you know, an hour a day sitting on a tube. But also, I had loads of spare money because although I took a fairly hefty pay cut to relocate to Glasgow, it was nothing like the living expense of living in London. So also, nobody works very long hours in Glasgow. This is one of the amazing things that I discovered. Everybody switches their computer off at 5 o'clock.
They're normal, exactly.
I know, they're normal. I mean, it's great because my boss was always chasing people out of the office, like, right, it's 5 o'clock, everybody go home. So see, I had all this time. Yeah. And you know, I liked working for the company I was working with. They're a great company to work for, but I did have a really awkward manager that I was working for at the time.
Okay.
And this idea of being a virtual assistant kind of came back to me, and the planets aligned, and a load of things happened which meant that I was able to do it. So for example, the first thing that happened was that my boss my direct boss had such a horrible go at me that I said, right, that's it, I'm going to go and look into this. And went along to a Business Gateway event, which is like Business Link, and they were having a big fair with lots of different people that you could speak to. One of the people I spoke to was the Prince's Trust, who actually funded my business to start up. And I was just young enough to do it. It's actually my birthday the following week, and I was just under. So the deal that they made with me is I had to start the business within 6 months,
right?
Which is fast. It's really fast in order to get the funding. And also at the time, the government were offering £1,000 to anybody under 30 who started up their business as a grant. So you just got this £1,000.
Brilliant.
Now, that sounds like an amazing amount of money. And most VAs are like, well, Caroline, if you had a loan and you had £1,000, why weren't you just, skyrocketing? And the thing is that actually it costs a lot of money to start a business in those days. We're talking about websites. WordPress didn't exist. You had to hard code websites. My phone system to answer the phones when I first started up, VoIP was in its infancy, and you could not rely on it for good quality phone calls. And basically, that cost £2,000 when I first started up. I think it was £2,500. So now you can do the same system for about 120 quid using VoIP, but in those days that's how much it costs. So there was a lot of startup costs for VAs.
Okay.
They were going to do full service stuff back then, and weirdly, because of the Princess Trust link, I got loads and loads of great PR when I started. Really fantastic. Had stuff in the local enterprise magazines. I had stuff in the Daily Record. I had stuff which is like the big paper up here. I had stuff in the Herald. I had stuff in national business publications. They really helped me to get a foot in the door. It was great. And the minute that I did the PR, I got this flood of people, a few clients in there as well, but I got this flood of people saying, I've never heard of this. I really want to do it. How did you set up? And because I was a new business and I was just starting up, the easiest way of doing it was just shoving it all onto a website. And that's what I did. And that's how SVA started. It was supposed to be a Scottish resource for Scottish virtual assistants. And within about a year, it was really clear to us that we had more English members than Scottish members.
Right.
And we did a name change. So it's the Society of Virtual Assistants. And the rest kind of mushroomed.
So it's like you were basically one of the first. And then with all that good PR in like traditional media, sort of print, because obviously social media wouldn't have existed then, you got a lot of people, because it was nearly like an education for people. People would have known what a virtual assistant is.
People were really curious about that. You would get clients saying, but what is that? What does that do? How do you do it? And then you would have people who were maybe traditional secretaries going, but I would love to do that.
Yeah, sure. So how would you have described, or how do you describe what a virtual assistant is? When somebody asks you, what is it you do? How do you describe that? Because it's one thing that varies vastly from person to person.
The elevator pitch. Well, basically, I do admin for people. I do admin. I do everything a traditional secretary would do, along with some marketing stuff. I do all the bits of administrivia that you hate doing. I work with time-poor, cash-rich clients, and they enjoy working with me because basically they can send us a task, they know it just gets done. It's off their to-do list once they send it to us. So that's kind of who we work with.
Yeah. And so when you became a virtual assistant, there wouldn't have been very much training out there because, as you say, it was like a very new thing. So did you do any specific training yourself, or
not Assistant training. At the time, there was a virtual assistant training course that was available in the US, which is the VA Business Startup System, which was run by VA Networking, and I think you can still buy it. And it is a really good system, and it takes you through all sorts of things like contracts and what you should use, technology and those kind of things. But it was totally unsuitable for a UK VA starting up. And weirdly, I knew another VA who started up at the same time as me, Lindsay, and she'd got the system. I knew it wasn't very helpful. So I guess I had the benefit of that. I have had some business training, because whilst I was running the business, I really began to feel that I needed a bit more nous about how you ran systems and how you ensured that your cash flow was properly protected, and how you made sure that you could build the business while still working on it, and all these kind of things that I think people struggle with. And that was really useful. It was done by Action Coach, who I know are not everybody's cup of tea, but I had a really positive experience with it. So I wouldn't say that it's that much different from just buying the books. It is a very expensive way of doing training. Just buy the books.
I guess it depends on how best you learn. Are you better sitting in a class being told what to do, or are you a self-learner and can do it at home?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, I'm a bit of both. Sometimes I need a kick up the backside, so going to class is probably good.
Yeah, the kick up the backside is definitely a big part of it, because you knew your coach was going to phone you and say, have you done this yet? And you're like, oh, I better do it before the phone call. No. So no, but it is very effective. It's an effective way of doing it. I'm pretty sure that my VA would happily kick my butt for me if I asked her to. She would really enjoy that. But yeah, there's probably cheaper ways of doing it, but that is a big part of it.
And so you're saying there that you had, a VA yourself, and so now you are at such a level that you actually have VAs working for you, and so the Society of Virtual Assistants and your own business. So tell us the structure of how that works.
We have about 15 to 20, and what happens is that they work for Virtually Sorted, and we basically have a big list of them, and every week they tell us what their availability is, and they've all passed various tests and things in order to work with us, and they're all very good VAs. And the structure is that basically when we have a piece of work, we outsource it to the most suitable person we know is available on that particular day, and they send it back, and then we check the work and send it back to the client. So it's all kind of comes through the central admin system, which is unusual, but we find that that's the best way of working with it, and it means that the clients get a relatively consistent standard of work as well. And it means that nobody gets backlogged with a ton of stuff. Hopefully.
So obviously there's a lot of different services that your business can offer. Can you just sort of go through, what services you now offer? Like, I know you've had quite a varied sort of history in working in different industries, including the music industry.
I did, yeah. I used to work for Sony Music, so I used to work with lots of pop stars.
Excellent. And there's a question I'll be getting to later.
Yeah, well, I also used to work for an advertising agency, which has definitely helped me a little bit. But basically what Virtually Sorted does is we do the basic admin. So although we started out offering call answering, and that was a big chunk of the business, it's not something that I directly have any involvement with anymore. Somebody else does that. And because to be honest, it was driving me nuts, and it was always the most difficult part of the business to service, and I just gave it to somebody else and said, look, here you go, you deal with it because you like dealing with it. I don't like dealing with it. But we still, if somebody comes on board, we can set them up with call answering. That's not a problem. So it's never been an issue in terms of being able to service the clients with all the different things that they need. We do a lot of audio typing, and that ranges from journalists who need stuff turned around really quickly. It's sometimes there's TV programs that need subtitles doing. It can be surveyors, it can be investigative reporters, all those kind of things. A lot of it's property related. We also have people who basically need somebody that I term this miscellaneous PA tasks. So this could be anything from finding their wife a birthday present to finding grout for their new project.
That is pretty miscellaneous.
It is. And you know what? They throw me curveballs all the time. I mean, quite often we just think, oh God, I had no idea such a thing existed. But they do. We got asked to find like huge amounts, as in, you know, like hundreds and hundreds of fake hedge for one of our clients for an event. And we had to have all of this fake hedge delivered to the address, but we also had to have it all picked up again.
Oh my God.
And returned somewhere else. So, you know, these are kind of the challenges that the clients love to fling at us, but I think they quite enjoy flinging us these weird and wonderful tasks. I think it's kind of gives them a bit of a kick sometimes. I have to say, I mean, it is a bit odd and it can be really time consuming, but it's really nice when those kind of things pull off.
Yeah, this, because I guess they're quite unusual, that it's kind of brightens up your day, maybe, that like, what's going to get thrown at me today? But it just shows that the experience and the team that you have built and the versatility, that clients trust you to do that. You know, they
love it. They love it. They kind of like, if they don't know what to do, they phone us and go, what's happening? Can you know, I've got this problem. What do you think I should do? And I think there's an element of trust there as well. You know, they'll say, I don't know if you guys do this, but what would you do? And I think, you know, people do trust their VA to do those kind of weird tasks that they're just not quite sure how to approach. And in some ways, the VA becomes almost like a sounding board for the client's business.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a nice position to be in. It's a nice, trustworthy position to be in as well.
I think it says a lot about the business and you know, it's the experience that virtual assistants has. You know, they're not just somebody that's going to type a letterhead or do something like that. They have a lot of experience in many different tasks, and as you say, they obviously put a lot of trust in you. So I take it for your business, you have like retainer clients, obviously clients that come back time and again to you because they've worked with you before.
We do have, yeah. We do have a bit, most of our clients are repeat business, so that's nice. We don't have that many retainer clients because generally the reason that the clients are using a VA is because they want the flexibility of their workload going up and down. So it's rare for us to have a client who has the same workload every single month. We have some, but the majority of them will work on an ongoing basis. So, you know, they've got this amount of work this month and that's how much work we do, and next month it might be that amount, you know, and it varies, and that's why they're using the virtual assistant. So, you know, yeah, the cash flow does vary, and you have to build your business around that, but you know, it tends to be that we work with a wide variety of different kinds of clients, and it kind of all evens out.
So when you're talking about, because the nature of those clients that you work with, as you say, you know, because any business is going to be like that, you know, their cash flow is going to be maybe top heavy at this one part of the year and not so much at another part of the year. So how do you go about searching for clients? How do you find your clients that you want to work with and that you know you can work with and fits around that sort of working schedule?
Well, we're really lucky because we've got a team. It means that we don't have to, you know, kind of piecemeal together, you know, oh, got 2 hours on a Friday, I've only got, you know, this amount per week, or if I took on that client, it means that I'm going to be working in late into the night. So we don't have to do that. And I think also the VAs that work for us like that arrangement, that they know they're not going to get overloaded with staff, that, you know, if they're sick one week, this week, you know, they can sorry, I've now made you cough. If they're sick one week, you know, they can say no to tasks and just say, look, I'm out of it this week, I don't want to do anything else. That's fine. So we don't have to look for specific clients to fit in with our other workload. So that's a really big benefit to working in a team environment. And the other sort of thing that we look for in clients is generally that, you know, that we think that we can do a really great job for them. We're really lucky because we've been in business quite a long time. We get a lot of clients come to us through recommendation. We get a lot of clients coming to us through the website. it all kind of just works. We have quite an established email newsletter, which I'm not as good as I should be at sending out, but this is on my list of things to do this year. You know, we're quite able to kind of ramp it up if we need some more clients. You know, I always take between Christmas and New Year off every year.
Nice.
It's about the only time that I ever really get holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, you kind of get into the swing of when you know you're going to be busy, you kind of minimize everything else. And when you know that you're going to be a downtime, you make sure that the marketing's in place for those busy periods so that it's continually happening, rather than it being a sort of splurge when you're quiet, and you have this seesaw effect of, you know, get busy, stop doing the marketing, have no clients when that work ends, and then you find that you've not got any clients coming on board. So yeah, it is, you need to be quite careful about that as a VA. I mean, it's one of the things that you should be building into your hourly fee.
Yeah.
Is allowing for the quiet times and the times that you're going to have to invest in a bit of marketing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people sort of forget that, you know, VAs have to do all their marketing. Well, they have to do everything themselves. You know, they wear so many different hats. They're the CEO, they're the accountant quite often, they're the marketer as well. And so building that time into any schedule, putting the message out there that you're available, this is your services, and doing that. And in such a world of social media that's constantly changing, you know, you first did it in print media, whereas now it's Snapchat and all these other different new tools. You know, there's always a different way.
Well, I'll tell you something though. You go, I've never had a client off social media.
Okay.
I've had it off blogs, I've had it off email, I've had it off I've had it from our website. I've never had anything from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, never.
I think when you say that, it's probably very true for most people as well. I think,
but then my target is time poor people, so they're not going to be on these platforms.
True. I think a lot of people maybe use these platforms as ways to get their voice out there, to get heard, to get known. But when it comes to actual business, it comes through word of mouth, referrals, and increasingly, I guess now, LinkedIn. But as you say, it depends on the client and if they're time poor.
It does. And it's interesting because, you know, my experience of getting clients is totally at odds with what I know the majority of VAs experience, because obviously every year we do the UK VA survey.
Yep.
And, you know, the number one top thing that they find gets them work is face-to-face networking. Now, I have to say I never really get that much from that, because again, my clients are not at those events because they're too busy. So, you know, it's one of these things that you have to build a business around what you are doing and your target market and the service that you want to offer. But at the same time, it's really interesting to see what the norm is and what other people are finding really works for them. So that's one of the reasons I think doing the UK VA survey is really, really important. It gives you a snapshot of the industry. It maybe makes you think a little bit more about your rates. And it makes you see, you know, the kinds of services that people are offering, the kinds of industries that you're using VAs, all these kind of things might just spark some ideas about your business and the things that you want to put in place.
Yeah, and I know, and I get the VA survey as well, and I've previously spoken with other VAs doing interviews, and they have said that after meeting you or even talking with you and reading the VA survey has definitely helped them realize how to maybe sort of set themselves up, how they want to get their specific client in their specific market, because as you say, it differs. But the pricing one was a really big
everyone hates me. I get so much hassle about this. Seriously, all the trainers are forever giving me a hard time about it, because they're like, well, you know, people should be able to charge whatever they want, they shouldn't charge like an average. And I'm like, listen, the problem with this is that it's all very well saying, well, you can charge whatever you want, but unless the clients can see value in that price, they're not going to go for it. And you know, the big thing is that if you're delivering value to your client, they don't care how much you charge them. You know, you can charge them 50 quid an hour, you can charge them 100 quid an hour. It's no problem. They're not going to care. But if you're offering exactly the same service as somebody down the road that charges 25 quid and you're charging 35, quite rightly the client is going to go, but why are you charging more?
Yeah, so I think it's when a lot of people are starting out, they really don't have a certain idea of how to charge that. But as you say, it depends on experience, it's dependent on value, and I guess that comes with experience of doing the virtual assistant role as well. But I have spoken to quite a few people that have found value in that survey.
Here's an interesting one as well, though, Gail. And it's not something that I thought up because, I chat to lots of different VAs. So I'm going to credit this one to Michelle Smith. Michelle and I were chatting and she said, well, do you know, being a VA is the only industry where, you have the same job title from day one starting as you have in, say, 10 years time. You're still a virtual assistant. And, in any other industry, you would become, say, in advertising, you would become like a junior account exec, and then you would maybe become account exec, account manager, account director, board account director. There's a progression there. And there's not with being a VA. I only charge £27.50 for my time. But I know new start VAs that are charging, say, 35. And to be honest, I don't see the value in that because, I've got all these years of experience doing it. And, they're asking me, well, how do I manage somebody's calendar? That's a kind of fairly basic thing. And if you don't know that, then maybe £35 an hour is not your price.
So when you're talking about that, and that's quite a good point, and it's another conversation I've had with many VAs, is about the title. Do you notice a difference in calling yourself a virtual assistant or a personal assistant or an executive assistant? Do you notice a difference on how that affects how clients maybe view you, or does it give you more seniority?
I've always used the term virtual assistant. I've never used anything else. I guess they know that we work as a team, which maybe sets us apart a little bit. But no, I never really, we've worked so hard to get people to recognize the term virtual assistant. I don't see the need to change that myself, but I can see why people are using terms like online business manager or executive support or freelance secretary or freelance admin, those kind of terms, just to distance themselves from, say, offshore assistants that use the term virtual assistant. We're always going to have people that use the term virtual assistant and are not very good. But really, it's about moving the whole industry up. Yeah. We want to have everybody that's identifying as a virtual assistant playing by the rules, making sure that they're compliant with GDPR, making sure that they're doing good quality work, making sure that they're not doing risky things that jeopardize client relationships. Because what happens is as a client, you walk into a room, somebody says, I'm a virtual assistant, and then they tell you a lovely story about how they had a virtual assistant and it was terrible. And that's really the whole way that I want to avoid those sort of things happening, because there's nothing worse. And it happens a lot. And it may well even be that they've had a virtual assistant, they were great, and all of a sudden they just weren't there anymore because they went back to a job. Now that could well be that they're pricing themselves out of the market. If you've got one client or two clients, maybe that's not enough to survive on, and you actually need to rethink your pricing strategy and your marketing. Yeah. So it all kind of ties in.
Yeah, so I think it's like there's certain things that all VAs, when they first start out, they need to do sort of first. As you say, you want to have a sort of standardized level that all virtual assistants attain, because one VA affects all other VAs, so you don't want to be tarnished the brush with some, a bad VA because they didn't adhere to GDPR, they weren't an ICO member, or they didn't have, their own indemnity insurance or anything like that.
Or they're working from Hotmail account and managed to send it to somebody else. That's always good fun. But yeah, it's not maliciousness that people are doing these things. It's just that they don't know. And, part of the problem is that we don't have an industry body, which is the industry body. We have several different ones, of which SVA is probably the largest UK one. But the problem with that is that, you know, you do have people saying different things about the industry, and it's something I always welcome, because, you know, it's not just my view on things that counts. It should be everybody's view. You know, and it's really difficult when it becomes this political beast. I mean, I'm always very welcoming of people who are doing good things for the industry, but it becomes problematic when you know that somebody is saying one thing and doing another. Yeah. So that's something that perhaps we do need to address as well.
Yeah, and I guess that raises a good point. And, you know, how businesses, you know, if we don't have a standardized body there, you know, how do we maintain levels ourselves? How do businesses themselves know that the VA that they find and they're working with is of a standard that, you know, works to the level that they want? You know, so what would you suggest a business, how should they go about finding, you know, a credible, relevant VA for them?
Well, one of the things that we did back in 2007, so this is a long time ago, you know, it's more than 10 years ago, at SVA, was we decided that actually we did need minimum standards for the industry. And at the time it kicked off, and there was all sorts of arguments, quite personal at times as well.
Okay.
But, you know, which I love, you know, I love that. But, you know, the idea is that, you know, everybody should have a proper email address. Everybody should have appropriate backup. You know, everybody should have a website of decent quality. And we've actually just revamped them back in 2017. We spent a little bit of time talking to all the different VA organizations and taking their views on board, the VA trainers, the other VA organizations, VA magazines, people that ran VA teams. And basically got together with them and said, look, these are 10 years old. We need to revamp these. What do you think is now relevant to this industry that moves really fast? What would you like to see more of? And actually, we have revamped them. We introduced, you know, having to have professional indemnity insurance, and various laws about cookies and things, which are now a legal requirement on the website. So this is one of the things that, you know, we work really hard at SVA to try and bring everybody in. So it's not about excluding people and saying, well, you can't be a VA unless you charge this much, or, you know, a proper VA would always have, you know, always do 10 hours of CPD a year. That's not what it's about. It's about actually just saying, look, this is really the minimum that you should be working to. You know, we're not being fancy about this, but this is required to be a good VA. And, you know, I have to say, we have brought so many more people on board in raising those standards by having them in place, just because a lot of the time people don't realize that they should have them there, that there's, you know, they just simply didn't know. So we have a free scheme to join, which is called the approved scheme. And basically, once you've been an SVA member for a couple of months, you get an invite, and it'll say, look, these are the things that you need to do in order to get on the list. And part of that is actually contributing to the industry by engaging with it on the forum, on the Facebook groups. Basically, it's about joining a community and helping one another. And that's kind of what we wanted to do.
Yeah, and that community, that is something I have the can't speak now, the checklist, and I've checked them all. I still have to apply for mine. I still want to organise.
But, you know, but there you go. You've got a list of things that you need to do in your business to move it forward. And, you know, who else gave you that? So it's really difficult, because, you know, how do you know unless you know? Yeah,
this is true. This is like a thing that I've heard a lot from various different things, is you just don't know what you don't know. And so that kind of nicely leads on to, I wanted to ask about, you know, you were talking about forums there and groups. Mm-hmm. I think especially the nature of the job being a virtual assistant, so isolating, and it is so important that people do become members of at least some groups, so that they can talk through, you know, their problems, challenges, or even just be there to cheerlead, you know, their achievements as well, because working on your own can be so isolating, and you do not want to get demotivated, because, you know, you're pushing it yourself. But is there any specific groups or any sort of forums that you find extremely helpful and useful along your journey?
Yeah, I mean, basically the SVA forum was just instrumental in being able to find out what other VAs were doing, and, you know, finding out how things worked, you know, because, for example, I think you know, I don't do numbers. I think this is well established. And so when I was looking at actually upgrading how we did our accounts management and account systems, that was one of the things that other VAs told me about and said, look, this is really what you need. You know, these are the kind of things you should be looking for. You know, this is what I use. How about using that? You know, so all of those kind of things are really, really important. And I think as well, because you're working, you know, most VAs work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Most VAs work alone. You know, and what happens is, you know, your partner walks through the door and you go, oh, it's so great, I got a new client today, because you've not spoken to anybody for like 8 hours. And he just, you know, he's been at work and he goes, oh, I've been talking to people all day. Ugh. And he just runs, you know. I mean, that's what happens to my husband anyway. Fortunately, he now works at home, so he comes and talks to me during the day. So now we have the two of us chat to each other during the day. It's not quite so bad. But certainly when he was at an office all day, I would come in and talk at him, and it drove him nuts. And also, he doesn't understand what the big deal is of getting, say, the transcription of an interview, or, you know, why it's great that I got a new client that's going to do 10 hours a month, or he just doesn't get it. He just goes, that's nice. And it's not quite the same as somebody who actually understands it. So yeah, it's one of those things. And you know, there's loads of chat rooms and stuff that you can find, and there's loads of Facebook groups and stuff. And it's about finding a tribe of people that you like chatting with. So, you know, whether that's on the SVA forums, or whether it's Facebook on the groups, or whether it's you know, the VASG chat. So there's a Skype chat you can join. You know, and it's great to just be able to, during the day, type away and say, you know, oh, I'm having a problem with this, I've got a bit of a brain freeze, what is this product I'm looking for? Or, you know, has anybody heard of somebody that does this? You know, those kind of questions are really useful. And that network of VAs has such a wide reach. You know, you'll have VAs in there that have maybe got background in accounting. You've maybe got ones with background in legal. You've got ones that have maybe got background in design. So you've got this wealth of experience just in that one group, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing that businesses, just bit my cheek there, that businesses don't kind of realize, you know, that virtual assistants, they aren't just maybe this person that does a little bit of admin. They can do so many different tasks, and as you touched on, like accounting, legal, copywriting. There's people even there that does like fashion research, vet research. You know, there's such an amazing range of virtual assistants out there. So it's really,
but it's kind of interesting, because when you look at the ages of virtual assistants and the experience levels of virtual assistants, these are not people who have been in basic admin roles. You know, these are people who are opting out of very high-powered roles in order to do the VA role. Certainly from my point of view, I left a very good job, and I left it voluntarily. It wasn't like I'd been made redundant and had to do something else. I actively sought out being a VA because I was after more control over my working environment. I was after being able to, you know, wear jeans to the office every day, basically. That's where this whole thing stems from, is me wanting to wear jeans. And you know, that's kind of it's something that I think people gloss over. So they assume that somebody being a VA, it's a default career, it's something that they've maybe fallen into, and I don't think that's true at all. I think these are, you know, they're generally women, but generally, you know, these are people who have actively opted to become a virtual assistant, rather than it being something that they looked at doing because it was the least worst option. Other times people are actively moving towards it. They want that flexibility, and that's the word that comes up all the time when we discuss motivations for becoming a VA, is flexibility. It pops up every single time we discuss it, and it's something that people are striving for in their working lives more and more now. Yeah,
I think because people are so time poor as well, and as you say, that's kind of the client, but it is so increasingly relevant in today's workplace that, you know, being able to support people who are time poor, but also doing your, you know, the work yourself. You need to be able to have time for yourself, and the VA industry allows that experience to continue to exist without having to lose it through, say, redundancies, through changes in lifestyle, people needing to be at home for whatever caring reasons. It means that that experience, and as you said, quite often VAs are such a level of experience, that experience isn't lost. There isn't a brain drain there, you know, that we can hold on to that valuable wealth of knowledge, but it's just in a much more flexible way. And I guess that's how a lot of large businesses are moving towards. You know, they're looking at how they manage their clients and the welfare and their, you know, their well-being as well. And so allowing the sort of flexible working is becoming more the norm. And so I guess that's great for the virtual assistant industry, because it's increasingly a way that businesses are looking to work. So it's just a case of getting the, you know, the sort of word out there that we exist, and we've existed for a while, but we are highly trained.
If you look at PwC, I mean, PwC are one of the world's most innovative companies in the way that they work. What are they recruiting? They're recruiting a whole team of virtual assistants to do their admin. Now, I have to say, and this is one of my little bugbears, they're still doing their management of those employees from a face-to-face office scenario. So you have to go into the office once a week with them.
Right.
And it is an employee relationship. It's not a self-employed relationship. However, the very fact that they're considering doing that means that it just raises the whole profile of being a VA. It legitimizes it.
Yep.
You know, if somebody from PwC who is charging you £800 an hour comes to see you and is using a VA, it suddenly takes the stigma away. I think sometimes I'm sort of like the client's dirty little secret. You know, they quite often will introduce me as their PA. But they don't always admit that I work virtually. And, you know, I've been in a really awkward situation where I've actually been having a meeting with a client, and I met like the next door neighbours that are in the same building. And he said, "Oh, yeah, no, I talk to you on the phone quite a lot. I've never seen you in there. Which office do you work in, Caroline?" And I was like, and the client actually had to admit that I work virtually at that point. It was a bit much. So, yeah. But it is something that clients kind of get a little bit embarrassed about admitting. You know, that it's not their PA, it's, you know, somebody that works for a variety of people. But, you know, I think we're moving away from that. I think, you know, we need to bring ourselves out into the light.
Yeah, I think we need to destigmify and demystify the world of virtual assistant, because just because you maybe work for several clients and you're not their VA, but you are their VA for a certain part of the day, but that means you have even more experience. So it should be, I'm a VA. This is how valuable it is. So I think it's, you know, and it was a post that somebody put on LinkedIn. It's like, no, I'm just a VA. It's like, no, stop it. You're not just a VA. A VA is highly skilled, highly valuable.
You're a business owner, and you know, how many secretaries do you know can do budgets? How many secretaries do you know about marketing? How many secretaries do you know who are used to managing staff? You know, these kind of things are things that VAs do all the time. You know, and I think it's a much bigger skill set than you would find in a normal PA.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we do a lot more, and as like I said, we wear several hats. So it's not just maybe the work that we do, it's also branding, it's also marketing, it's also accounting, it's also all the stuff that all business owners have to do that VAs do themselves as well. Or if they're lucky enough, they can ship out to other VAs, which I really need to do with my scheduling. But so coming over that, you've talked about that it's kind of a hurdle that not just you, but the industry in general is to come over. So over the years, like, I mean, what challenges that have you faced and that you now see sort of disappearing? You know, what challenges have you had to face, and how did you overcome them?
When I first started, I mean, the big challenge was the technology, and the big challenge was getting people to understand what I did, because you said virtual assistant and you just saw this blank face. They had no idea. I don't think that happens. I can't actually think of the last time that I went to something and people didn't understand what a virtual assistant was. You know, I don't do that much face-to-face networking anymore because it doesn't really work for me. But when I do go to them, I never have a problem saying, I'm virtual assistant, this is what I do. People understand it, they've heard the term before. That doesn't really exist so much. I would say personally for me, I think one of the big challenges was kind of taking my own advice about outsourcing, which sounds stupid. But you know, as VAs, we're always telling people to outsource. We're always telling people that, you know, it would save them time. And when I first started, had employees because I needed them there to answer the phones, because the phones are physical phone lines coming into the building, and I needed certain cover and things. So that was, it was not a traditional VA setup. But when I switched into doing the traditional VA setup, where they worked from home and it was a kind of flexible role, and what I tended to find with the employees was that we always get work first thing in the morning and last thing at night. So it's probably about like 9 o'clock in the morning, stuff starts to trickle through, and by about 11, everybody's sent you the work, and it starts up again about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and people send through stuff that they've been working on during the day, and they want it back the following morning. And what happened with the employees was that because they only worked till 5 o'clock, anything that came through at 4, they'd go, oh, I can't finish that in time, I can't finish that in time. So they would go, and I would be sitting there typing until 10, 11, midnight, you know. And it's tough, it's really tough, and it didn't work for me anymore. So now we have a kind of flexible shift of people that work in the evenings and at weekends for those kind of tasks, because they happen all the time.
Yeah.
And that's been a really big move. What I would say though is I'm really pleased that I understand the work that I'm outsourcing. What I mean by that is, when I get a task, if I can't do it, I'm not going to give it to a VA and go, you do it and just do your best, because I think that's not being honest with the client.
Yeah.
They expect me to check the work. They expect a certain standard from me. It's my name above the door. That's what they're expecting. And if it comes back and it's not up to standard, and I have no idea whether or not it's up to standard, I can't send that back to the client with my name on it.
Yeah.
So if we have something that I want to outsource that I don't know how to do, generally what I'll say to the client is, look, I'm really sorry, that's not something that I do. I do know somebody that's able to help you. Why don't you go and speak to them? And then they have that relationship directly, and I'm still seen as the good guy because I've actually put them in touch with somebody helpful. And that's one of the things that we always say when you're looking for a trainer. Ask them what to do, what they would recommend you do if somebody comes to you asking for a skill set that you don't offer. Now, because somebody who has been a VA and has been in that situation will go, oh, I don't want to get involved in something that I don't know how to do. The safest way of dealing with that is actually to give it. The VA trainer who is not that experienced will go, oh yeah, that's a really great idea. What you can do is you can give it to another VA and you can still take the money from the client, and it's really positive because you keep the client. Yeah, it doesn't work. Always goes badly wrong. So I think that's one of the things I think you have to be really honest about is your skills and your ability to assess it. So even though I say outsource, make sure you understand what you're outsourcing, how long it should take, the kind of standards that you would expect, and you have to be really clear about communicating that to the VA that's working for you as well.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point as well, that, don't be afraid to say, no, I don't offer that as a service to a client, but I do know somebody that does, because that just will speak volumes of your knowledge of the industry as well, but also it just generates goodwill and trust between you, your client, and other VAs, and in general that reflects on the industry as a whole. And you never know, years down the line, you may offer that as a service, because you may have thought, right, well, I keep asking this, I need to learn how to do it. So don't feel bad to say no. And I guess it's the same with clients as well.
I mean, a lot of PAs really struggle with saying no, because, as an employee, and this comes down to the employee mindset, as an employee, your job is kind of to say yes. So when somebody asks you to do something, you want to be as helpful as possible. You'll say yes, you'll say yes, you'll say yes. But if you don't have time to do that particular work, or if you don't have the experience to do that particular work, you're not doing the client any favors by saying yes. And also, as a client rather than as your manager in an employed role, somebody will always have the overarching responsibility for your workload. As a self-employed person, nobody apart from you has that responsibility. So, you have to be careful about not overloading yourself and not, saying yes to stuff that means that you're up till midnight like me. And, it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous situation to get into. I used to work a hell of a lot of hours. I used to work about 70 or 80 hour a week, and I was doing exactly the same with my VA business. And it almost broke me the first time. So when I recognized it the second time, I was like, no, been here before, we need to change this. So that's kind of what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that you have the responsibility for yourself and your health and your happiness and all the kind of things that usually a manager would do. So being a business owner also means saying no.
Yeah, definitely. It's a nice sort of situation to be in, I guess, you know, saying, oh, I just don't have the time to do this, I am so busy. But getting to that stage.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny because I had this conversation actually at the Northern VA collaboration, and people were saying, oh, well, you know, yes, it would be nice to be in that situation. Yeah, it's nice to be in that situation. But, you know, what I always say is, and they were talking about prices and whether or not they should drop their price and this kind of thing. And I said, well, there's a set of circumstances where it's a really good idea to drop your price. You know, do you really need the money? That's first. You know, do you really need the money? Do you need it to pay a bill? If that will let you continue in business for a bit longer and pay your bills, then say yes to the work. Because, you know, if you're not around to say yes to the work, you don't have a business left. The second reason why it's really good to say yes to work when it's maybe not at your full rate, you may well be able to develop that client into a full paying client. You might also, you know, it might be some work that you really love working for. So I have a charity that I work for, which I do not earn enough money from. However, I really enjoy the work that they do. It's an interesting project to work on. It's a feel good thing. I love it. So I do that for them. I don't charge them anything near as much as I should, but we kind of have an arrangement that they pay me a little bit, and that's enough. And I do the work personally. It doesn't interfere with anything else. I make sure that the deadlines that they have are really flexible, and that's their expectation. It's not the same as having a full all whistles, all dancing kind of VA service. So they know that, and they respect that we've discounted it quite heavily for them. And also the final one that you need to consider is this something that perhaps lets you develop your skills and into a new area so that you can charge other clients more? You know, do they have contacts in that industry? Would they be able to recommend you? Is it maybe doing some work you've never done before, but they're willing to train you up on it and pay you a reduced rate? You can always say to them, look, this is for a time limited period, or it's for a maximum of a number of hours per month, or, you know, you can work it out however you do, so that you can actually make sure that work isn't to the detriment of the rest of your work, but it lets you take the work on.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to learn, because quite often there are clients, you know, they really want something done, but they don't want to go to a VA. They just don't know. They want to stick with you, but they understand that, okay, maybe you haven't done it before, but they are willing to let you learn it as on the job. And so for that case, you can discuss about reducing rates. And again, then it's sort of investing in yourself. You know, reducing your rates is still investing in you, training yourself up to offer another service. So I guess, yeah, there are in certain circumstances that pricing...
There are different ways to do that. So it might not be reducing your rate, but you might say, look, let me go and have a look at this and see how difficult it is. And you might spend 2 or 3 hours researching it or learning how to do it. And the client doesn't get charged for those, but then they get charged the rest of the hours. So it might only be that you've got maybe 2 hours work out of the client, but you've maybe spent 5 hours overall on the project. So yeah, I mean, it is kind of swings and roundabouts. You can always put on your bill your full rate and then the discount that they're receiving, so that they understand that this is a favor that you're doing them.
Yeah, and I think that's how I ended up doing video. I was asked, was it something I did? And at the time, no, I didn't. And I'm like, right, okay, well, I can look into this and do this. And then I invested the time and the effort into learning how to do it. And then, as you said, reducing the rate and discounting, showing the discount. And then it's just something that I've now found myself wading into, because I absolutely love. And I guess that's sort of the beauty of the virtual assistant industry, is like you can find yourself doing different tasks and they change.
And it's such a fast moving industry. And this brings us on to another point that we were going to chat about, which was actually it's such a fast moving industry that the advice that you would get, say, 5 years ago for using Twitter has now totally changed. And if you use that advice these days, you wouldn't have any results whatsoever. And that's a good point. When you're looking at trainers, you really want somebody who is still working with clients, ideally, so that they understand the industry. It shows that they've kind of kept their industry knowledge current. And not very many of them are currently VAs, but there are degrees of keeping up with industry knowledge that they do. So you really want to be testing them a little bit on what is current industry best practice, how they keep that knowledge current, how they make sure that they investigate new things coming up, like new algorithms or new social media platforms, those kind of things. So, you know, if the answer is, well, I Google it, it's not good enough. You know, they do actually need to understand a little bit more about the industry and what they're doing. So that's always a good tip if you're looking for VA trainers.
I think that's a good tip for just sort of a business looking for a VA, as well as a VA looking for a client, and a VA looking for a trainer. It's like whether all these different avenues, all these different people, all these different stakeholders, are they all the same level of relevancy? You know, are they up to industry standard? And do they keep the practices current? And I think as a VA, you need to do that yourself, but so do your clients as well, because, you know, the work you do for other people will also reflect on you as well. So I think that's a sort of a good thing to remember. Lastly, well, there's two things actually, but lastly, just wanted to say, do you have any specific goals for the short term, the medium term, the long term? Where do you see Virtually Sorted, and where do you see the Society of Virtual Assistants going, apart from maybe having a proper one-stop industry board and standardization? But for you and your business, where do you see the business going?
For me personally, I need this year, my goal is to get a new bathroom. So,
there you go.
I've been saying this for like the last probably 3 years since my daughter was born. I've been saying I need a new bathroom. So, but I don't want like a little kind of tiny bathroom. I want like a big bathroom. It's going to be fabulous. So I need to make sure that I earn some serious amounts of cash that I can take out of the business in order to do that. So there's going to be quite a lot of ramping up of some of the things that I'm doing in terms of marketing, in terms of the team, in terms of how we work, etc., the way that we build, those kind of things. So that's kind of quite exciting for my business personally. And for SVA, I've explained to you kind of the whole ethos behind SVA was virtual assistants working together to help each other promote the industry as a whole. And the idea behind it was just simply for VAs to help one another out. It's never really had a business plan as such, but I think one of the things that I'm really keen on doing is pushing that work forward in terms of industry standards, making sure that we have VAs coming into the industry feeling supported. I think that's a big thing. And being able to know when they make a choice about training, when they make a choice about, you know, how they're going to work, that they know that they're making the right decision based upon proper stats and proper information. Because I think a lot of them are being led up the garden path at the moment. And the thing that I get most emails about this last 2-3 years are actually people who have been led up the path by trainers, and it's heartbreaking. Some of the stuff that we've been told is really harrowing. You know, we've got trainers who have said that they would give the person work and then doesn't, and won't refund the fee for the training. We've had people who have taken out a loan to do the training and found that actually the course that they've bought has not been suitable. It doesn't teach them how to be a VA. The vast majority of people that are upset about this are people who have been told that they will earn a certain amount per hour and be able to work really part-time hours, like 5-10 hours a week. And that's simply not true. And it's simply not true because we've got the data from the UK VA survey. We can even compare the rates that the graduates from these courses earn and the amount of money that they earn per annum against what they say in their marketing. And you know, I think we're now going to have to speak out about this, because it's becoming an issue. It's, you know, I hate getting these emails. It's quite upsetting actually as a VA, because I know how good it can be to be a VA.
Yeah.
And we have these people going away with a horrible impression of the industry. But what's more, you can say, well, that's tough for them because it should have been a case of buyer beware. But what's more, all of their clients, when they shut up shop and go back to a job, have a really negative opinion of the VA industry, because as far as they're concerned, they paid top dollar for a professional assistant and they just buggered off back to work.
Yeah.
So for all of us, this is an issue that we should be taking quite seriously. And that's something we are going to be doing some work on.
Yeah,
so hopefully we're going to get to a point where everybody's working together and everybody is kind of singing from the same hymn sheet, and everybody is kind of working together to raise standards, not being exclusive, being as welcoming as possible, as welcome as they've always been in the VA industry.
Yeah.
And make sure that everybody is enjoying being a virtual assistant.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a great goal, because the way I find it is that the industry is so supportive and so helpful, and it's really lovely to be working in this industry. And so if there's any way that it can be improved upon, standardized, and as you said, people aren't sort of led up a jolly path and wasted a lot of time, money and effort, and then come away with such a negative idea of the industry as something we totally want to avoid, because then it also permeates back into the business. You know, they're not going to give a good reflection of the industry, so why should a business then hire a VA? So it's just detrimental for anyone to do, you know, to sell training that's not relevant or is overcharged or doesn't do what it says on the tin. You know, it just hurts the whole industry as a whole.
And this sounds like I've been really negative about trainers. That's not true, because you know what, there's at least 2 courses that I get told about all the time about how brilliant they are, right? There's 2 of them and I get great reviews from them all the time, and there are another 2 and it's the same 2, so I get the same 2 I get good reports about, and I get the same 2 that I get bad reports about. And that's kind of how it falls. So you know, the thing is, if you're providing great value to the people that are doing your course, you're going to get rave reviews and I'm going to get great feedback on it. If you're not providing great value for money, I'm going to get to hear about it, because people just talk. That's what VAs do. You put them in a room and they talk. And this is the thing, you know, it's always the same 2 courses that I get the complaints about. You know, and we try as far as possible not to name and shame, but to make sure that those courses actually pull their socks up and start delivering value. You know, we've done it in the past before. You know, we've written articles about this. We've pointed out where some of the difficult questions you should be asking when you're buying training. But good training really should be a huge asset to your business. Yeah.
And I think when you're able to say that you've done this training, and whether the certificate or whatever attached to it, then people will actually realize, oh, well, no, they've done this to a certain standard. They know what they're doing. So it reflects well. So it is definitely a good thing to look into. And as you say, it's a little bit of buyer beware, but it's not that easy, you know. So having a standardized body along the way, or even a blacklist, which sounds so harsh, but some sort of recompense that people have to stick to a certain level of standard of the work they do, but that also means the training that they do as well, I think would definitely be a great thing for the whole virtual assistant industry to adhere to. So I look forward to that myself.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that, Gail. I'm going to sign off now and go and run around the corner and go and pick up my child. This is one of my non-working days, I have to say. So we're squishing it in between, doing that flexible thing again. And yeah, really good. And thank you for inviting me along.
You're very welcome, and thank you for being so honest and open and such great pieces of advice. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Caroline.